Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I share the recent Forbes video, 6 Ways to Recruit Top Gen Z Talent. Welcome back to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. It's great to be with you again today for this Forbes feature HCI podcast episode. Today I'll be exploring the recent Forbes video, 6 Ways to Recruit Top Gen Z Talent. On the cusp of their professional lives, Generation Z was looking forward to joining the workforce in the midst of a strong economy. Enter COVID-19, and all of that changed overnight. Now, as the economy is showing signs of life, this generation is taking a second look at their assumptions about the world of work. And they're changing their minds on several key issues. A new survey by Tallo asked nearly 10,000 high school and college students about their shifting perspectives on work and what's important to them in their first full-time position. Compared to last year, young people are significantly more likely to prioritize financial stability, hone their networking skills, and consider moving for the right offer. It might be easy to lump Millennials and Gen Z together, but there are some distinct nuances. While millennials may not entirely deserve their reputation as job hoppers, their careers have taken many turns, and they also play a significant role in the gig economy. Tapping into the next generation of talent has become more strategic than ever. Here are 6 ways recruiters can pivot to get Gen Z's attention on the job front. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you on the flip side of this first clip.
The world has changed overnight for Gen Z, and they're starting to look for jobs as they come out of college. These are 6 ways that you could recruit top talent from Gen Z right into your business.
So let me start off by just acknowledging that when we generalize across age cohorts, obviously we're painting with broad brushstrokes, and those generalizations don't apply to everybody. So whether we're talking about the silent generation or baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, or Gen Z, obviously each individual is unique and they're going to have their own drivers, they're going to have their own preferences. But as we look at them collectively as an age cohort, then we can start to see patterns and we can start to determine trends. And so each of the 6 tips that are going to be shared throughout this video get at the general trends. Of course, we need to recognize the need to reach out to different segments of the population within the Gen Z age cohort. We will see large differences across different segments of that population.
The first way is to connect early and often. Even if you don't have any immediate openings available, reach out to promising candidates, because 81% of Gen Z strongly agrees that they need to establish employer communications and contact in order to be able to get where they want to go. That's significantly up 22% from last December.
We need to connect early and often. Gen Z individuals, by and large, they really want to have a connection with the organizations where they might work. And there's lots of people vying for their attention. Clearly, there's so much noise out there in the media, and there's so many people vying for the attention of millennials and Gen Z. So this isn't an easy task. But we have to reach out, we have to connect early and often, and ultimately, if we want to attract the best talent, we have to start sooner in the recruitment process. It's not enough to start recruiting senior year of college. We need to be reaching out sooner to colleges and universities. We need to be reaching out even to high schools, depending on our industry and what we're looking for. Ultimately, we just need to connect with possible applicants much, much sooner.
Next, emphasize the position and not the company. I realize this may seem completely counterintuitive, but today Gen Z is more apt to choose the role over the brand. In fact, they are twice as likely to choose the position that they wanted all along with a company that they don't know, as opposed to taking a lesser position at a company they do know.
This one has always struck me as odd, and I recognize there has been a difference across age cohorts generally. But emphasis of company brand as opposed to the job and the role that someone is performing has always seemed a little bit odd to me. Perhaps that's because I'm on the really tail end of Gen X or the really top end of millennial generations, but that's never resonated with me. Now, brand, yeah, it matters. All else being equal, I'd rather work for the more recognized organization because that could be leveraged into future opportunities in my career. But what we see in Gen Z is that they recognize that developing skills will happen on the job, and so they need the right role. The role is really what they're chasing, and if they can get the right role, then they'll have opportunities that will open up in their career due to the skill set, the competencies and capabilities that they've developed, as opposed to working in a great company but really having a crummy role, which won't prepare them for the fast-changing nature of work.
Next, meet them online. Gen Z is recognizing the value of building their own personal brand, with 53% of college students strongly agreeing that this is important. Last year, that was 34%.
Meet them online. Meet them where they're at. Most of our Gen Z individuals and students and employees in that generation, they are online. They are on the social media platforms. They're not just on Facebook. They might be there, but more so they're on Instagram. They're on TikTok. They're on places like LinkedIn, but not quite as much. And so meet them where they're at. Get in front of them to get their attention in the platforms that resonate with them. And that may mean you need to stretch yourselves a little bit in your social media marketing efforts and your employee branding efforts within your organization. I'm excited to announce the publication of my new book from HCI Press, Bluer Than Indigo Leadership: The Journey of Becoming a Truly Remarkable Leader. Early in my adult life, I learned about an Asian proverb that translates as bluer than indigo. If you think about the color indigo, it is a brilliant, deep, and vibrant blue, what some would call the bluest of blues. To have something that is bluer than indigo is rare and truly remarkable. Contrary to popular myth, there is no one-size-fits-all or cookie-cutter approach to effective leadership. There's no silver bullet, no secret sauce, no go-to model that will solve all of our problems. The truth is, great leaders have all had their unique strengths and flaws, and have all had to discover and then pave their own distinctive path in their life's journey to fulfill their leadership potential. Bluer Than Indigo Leadership will help you discover your own path and explore those ordinary, everyday actions that will help you respond to an uncertain future and produce extraordinary results for individuals, teams, and organizations.
Next, make geography irrelevant. Nearly 3/4 of Gen Z say that they want to work remotely. Well, if geography is no longer critically important to them, well, maybe it shouldn't be as critically important to us either. We are going to work in a world where both in-person and remote work is going to be the norm. Maybe this is the time to make that transition.
I've always thought we should make geography relatively irrelevant. And if we haven't learned anything else during this past year of the COVID pandemic, hopefully we've learned that regional and geographic proximity just doesn't matter as much as we may have thought it did in the past. So many people have worked remotely very successfully for the past year. And so we need to make sure that if we're requiring people to be in the office, which requires them to be in a specific geographic location, that we better have a good reason for it. If we don't have a good reason for it, then we need to be more flexible. We need to allow people to live and work where they're at. And if they want to move and go somewhere else, does it really matter where they live? Does it really matter if they're working remotely or in person in the office? Now, for some roles, it does. And some organizations want a hybrid work environment where they're partly remote and partly face-to-face. So ultimately, you have to make that determination. But more than three quarters of Gen Z want to work remotely, and they want geographic flexibility. They're digital nomads, and they want to be able to go where they want to go. And so you may feel like that's a silly thing, or that that's kind of an entitled mentality, that they think that they can demand that kind of accommodation to their desired work life and the way they see their life going. But again, if you're looking for top talent, you're going to have to create roles and provide a workplace environment that is consistent with what your employees want. And if you don't, someone else will, and they'll go there, and other people will get the best talent. So don't be so rigid with the geographic location, and provide more opportunities for remote work whenever it's feasible.
Next, diversify. If you have a diverse workplace, you'll attract and recruit even better candidates, because Gen Z is the most ethnically diverse generation yet. And so that needs to be reflected within your workplace.
Every organization should be diversifying already and should be making inclusion one of their top strategic priorities already. But if you're not, just one more reason why it's important, why it means a lot for your bottom line, is if you want to attract and retain the best Gen Z employees with the top skills and capabilities to help your organization succeed, they simply aren't going to tolerate working for an organization that's not inclusive, that doesn't have a diverse representation in their workforce and in their leadership. So this is as important as it's ever been. And of course, from a human level, it's always been important. And even from a business case perspective, it's always been important. There's lots of statistics that show why a diverse workforce is vital. But just add to the list that Gen Z employees are going to expect to work in a diverse workforce. And if you're not that way, if your workforce doesn't represent the broader community, then they're going to go elsewhere.
And lastly, take the long view. More than 1 in 3 Gen Zers say they plan to work in their first job for 4 or more years, and only 6% say that they want to work within the gig economy after graduation. They're looking for long-term opportunities. So if you want to build a loyal employee base, look for those people who can connect to your long-term vision.
This is something that's shifted a bit from the millennial generation. We all know that millennials have gotten a bit of a bad rap for being job hoppers. They just move around from one job to the next. And, they may move every year or every 2 years. The reality is, Gen Z, we're seeing that trend go back a little bit. Not a ton, and we're still not talking about baby boomers who are going to go work for the same company for most of their career. But you can expect, 4, 5, 6 years with a good Gen Z employee, more if you have career pathways and career lanes established for them so they can grow within your organization. But play the long game, recognize that these are people you can bring in that are going to stick with you if you invest in them. So make sure that you invest in them and show them that you value them.
Gen Z has been fluid during these insane times. In fact, it's impressive how fast they've been able to pivot and adapt to a world that's seemingly changing every day, which is why I call them Generation Resilient. So the takeaway from this for employers, be as nimble as Gen Z in convincing them that you're the right fit.
Generation Resilient. Employers, organizational leaders, they need to be as nimble as Gen Z. We need to recognize that this is a generation that's been through a lot, especially during this past year, during the pandemic. And they have challenged the assumptions, the traditional notions that have been held within organizations about what is expected. And they won't accept the old arguments or the old explanations. if there's not good reason for why that's going to persist into the future. We need to be flexible. We need to be nimble. We need to show them that we're inclusive, that we care about them, that we're going to invest in them. And ultimately, we need to meet them where they're at and allow for flexibility in not tying them to a geographic location so that we can all thrive together. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. As always, I hope you stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day, and I hope you have a great week. The alchemy of truly remarkable leadership. Ordinary, everyday actions that produce extraordinary results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The alchemy of truly remarkable leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life. Check out Human Capital Innovations magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine with the mission to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We publish issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Take a look at the latest issue and let us know what you think. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.